brain is working overtime trying to figure out when a lot of these things were done. Yeah, so far, thumbs up. This is all good. Okay, so we're coming around the back and yikes. Now we've got an addition here. I come in here and I look and I say, ooh, nice mantle. So now that I've walked it, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, do we buy it? Hey guys, Brent Hull, welcome to Old House Handbook. We're looking at a 1940s house. Interesting, quirky, kind of fun's been added onto. I'm going to talk about whether I should buy it, or if I did recommend a client buy it, what would we do to it? So come check it out. Awesome, cool little house, 1940s here in Fort Worth. This area is exploding, right? This area is blowing up, and people are blowing up houses like this and building big monstrosities like across the street, which is unfortunate because this is a real charmer, okay? And if it weren't in the area that's blowing up, I would say buy it for sure, because there's a bunch of quirky, fun, period attributes to this house which are typical, and it hasn't been changed that much. Clearly the house was built in 1940s. The 1940s are dealing with a fairly rough period of time in America, right? We are into the World War II, what, in 41 or 42, and so we just come out of the Great Depression. It isn't a time where people are spending a lot of money on houses. Now, this is a fairly simple house built in that period, 2-bedroom, 1-bath kind of house, but there's a bunch of really great details in this house. Let's just start walking around, check this house out, show you some of the things I'm seeing and liking. These, I think, are original shutters. Those are plank shutters. They're a V-groove board. The fact that they've been exposed to the weather for so long and are still there makes me think it's old growth lumber, which is cool. Quarry tile, broken quarry tile front porch. That is something that's really popular in the 20s and 30s. So it's a holdover. I think this was added later, but I think these posts are original. They've done a little repair here at the bottom. Not the best, but a really charming porch. It's kind of nice and deep, so you can sit out here. You could swing on here. Look at my wide plank tongue and groove ceiling. That's a bonus, right? That's a better way to treat a ceiling than putting plywood up on it. So again, you're starting to see some of these cute, fun little details that make this house charming. Let's go around the outside. There's good details here. We're looking at a rake face red brick. We've got original windows. I'm looking at all of this stuff that I'm checking out. It's a pier and beam foundation. Pier and beam, is a more expensive foundation than you have today. I've got air vents right there for the pier and beam. So far, I'm really loving this house, and great architectural details, in pretty good shape. I mean, the windows, right, they need a little bit of paint, but the fact that I've got original wood windows, need a little bit of glazing in there, the fact that these are holding up, the fact that they haven't been painted that much and that they're still in good shape means it's old growth lumber, means it's gonna last a long time. So yeah, so far, thumbs up, this is all good. I look at these windows and I say, yes, bonus. I've got original windows. We're in North Texas, okay? Our median temperature is 68 degrees. We don't have a heat loss problem. We're not in Minnesota. So the fact that I've got decent coverage from trees, the fact that these are still sitting in there means I've got old growth lumber. There's probably 30 windows on this house. You know how much it would cost to call Marvin or Pella or Colby to replace these windows? That's a $30,000 to $50,000 exercise. Why? Okay, I've got windows that have been here 80 years, okay, almost 90 years, and will last and continue to last another 100 years if they just get taken care of. So why would I put in a window that's gonna last 20 years at the most? Look at the depth of my profiles. I got a brick mold that's 1.1 inches thick. I've got these mutton bars and these thick windows. I've got great depth and shadow line. If you saw my video on the flat window syndrome, which I hate, okay, this is the anti-flat window, right? I've got a 4-inch brick, I got an 1.1 inches thing. I mean, I'm 8 inches back here before where those new windows are stuck right out here on the face of the building. They look ugly. Beauty and longevity. That's why we're keeping these windows, okay? Great stuff. Okay, so we're coming around the back and yikes. Now we've got an addition here. What's my first clue? Well, when do you think this addition was done, right? Look at that roof line, okay? It's sticking 4 feet out in the air. This is a modern 50s, 60s addition that was put onto this house. Look at my asbestos siding, right? We've changed our siding. You know, they put in a Victorian door. That door is from the 1890s. That door doesn't belong here. But they've got these kind of interesting back addition to this thing, which is kind of makes me go, what is going on here? What was happening? We'll have to dig into more of that as we kind of scoot around this house. Now I started looking at this building and I'm looking at the backyard and I'm like, wow, look at that back there. All of a sudden the value of this lot just tripled, right? Because now I've got all this room back here that we've got to figure out a way to make use of this really good. I got an original garage, okay? And I've got a 107 siding. Okay, that's what that siding is, at least in our area. And I've got asbestos shingles put on top of it. They may not be asbestos, but they're an asbestos-like shingle. This needs to come off. This was done when that addition was done. See that? So they had an original house, an original garage, and they added this siding onto this thing to try to modernize it. But I'm looking at the backside of this addition, kind of going, what do I think of this? How would I handle this? How would I deal with this? And so I got a pier and beam foundation for this addition. So I'm going, it's not all bad, but I've got to figure out how to tie this together with the rest of the house. I've got double hung windows, okay? Now they're 1/1 windows versus the 6/6 that I've got over here. So that's a little bit of a question, playing around with this landscaping, obviously, but I look at this and I go, okay, it's well made, okay? It's well constructed, just all the architectural details are kind of messed up. So I'm gonna have to kind of process that and try to figure out what I want to do with it. But again, I don't look at this and go, oh no, now I got a big problem. I don't. I think I've got a design issue, but not necessarily a problem. Let's go inside, check out the great details, and I can't wait to figure out how they tied this thing together. Okay, so we've walked in. Pretty typical in this period to walk into the living room. There's no vestibule, there's nothing like that. It's a simple house. Remember, originally it was probably a 2-bedroom house. It's now a 4-bedroom house. And so there's been those additions that have been added on. I come in here and I look and I say, ooh, nice mantle, right? I wish that mantle was available in the catalogs today. Okay, that is a good Colonial Revival mantle. It looks like a federal style, federal period mantle. And so I'm looking at that going, yeah, bonus here. That looks really good. That mirror is pretty old over top of it, may not be original. I can see sconces on either side of that might be underneath that, might be hidden back there. So so far so good. I'm looking at the trim. I've got, 3.5, 4-inch moldings, which in 1940 is pretty wide. You begin to see in the 1930s moldings shrinking, not because of style necessarily, but because of cost. And so I look at this and I go, okay, well they did spend some money here. We've got strip oak floorings, which is really good. I've got a flooring vent that was been closed in at some point, right? So I'm looking at that going, well, that used to be a heater vent. I could weave in the oak better in that spot and hide that much better. That's why that hole is there. So if you look just around at this thing, I see some cracks. Now in Fort Worth, Texas, because we have expansive soils, that means we have clay in our soil, the house has moved quite a bit. This would be maybe a big no-no in some areas, not here, okay? That is a bad tape job more than anything else. And it's very possible that this house had no sheetrock originally on the house. It was actually wood slats with wallpaper, kind of typical in the 1940s. Now, if you see my drywall video, you know that drywall kind of starts coming around in the 20s and 30s. And so even by the 50s, you start to see drywall being predominant. So it's unclear exactly when that was put in here, but that tape line doesn't scare me. Movement doesn't scare me that much. It'd be pretty inexpensive to just tear this down and put new sheetrock up there if you wanted to do that. So again, no big red flags for me in here. This is pretty interesting because we've come into this space and I think we're getting a hint at maybe some of the changes that have taken place. I've got a 6-panel door in my front and I've got all of a sudden a Luan hollow core door here, okay? Now, if you know from the catalogs and some of my talks, the hollow core door is a late 1940s, early 1950s. It's modern. This belongs in a ranch style house. Also, this Luan kind of tongue and groove paneling is also something that is 50s, 60s, you know, kind of era. And that matches that addition we saw in the back. Remember, we saw that modern addition on the back. So now I'm looking inside here going, okay, so at some point, someone came along 10, 15, 20 years after this house was built and modernized it. And that's what we're looking at. Now, interestingly, I find it charming, okay? I find it definitive. I find it one of those character defining things, and not in a bad way, because probably, let's say this was done in the 60s, probably in the 70s and 80s, you looked at this and went like, ugh. But now we are, you know, 60 years past when the time it was done, and I'm looking at it going, it's kind of fun, right? It's kind of charming. So I'd probably paint it, okay, is probably what I do. If I was painting it, I'd probably go back with 6-panel doors, but there are some fun, charming things in here. This bathroom has obviously been redone. I think I might have an original toilet, and there's a quick way of finding out if you do. You can look at the underside of these toilets and they're dated. So this is a Crane one, and it says 59. So probably this was done in the late 50s, okay? And so this whole bathroom and whole thing might have been added, might have been done at that time. You look at that 4-inch tile, you look at the way it's laid on top of there, and all of a sudden going, okay, so maybe this is a front bedroom, maybe they added a bath. 59, all of a sudden I've got in my head. There's a good clue of when this work was done. Not a deal killer, right? But certainly something that makes you go, would have to do something in here. I don't think I would leave it exactly like this. Okay, so we're seeing some funky things going on here, and my brain is working overtime trying to figure out when a lot of these things were done. And so I've got in that toilet tank cover 59. I know the house was built in the 40s, 41. And so, you know, we're almost a 20-year time gap. The hollow core doors as opposed to 6-panel doors, maybe they updated that. Maybe they changed that when they were doing that. I've got this wide trim, which is still original. Now this bathroom, right, I said it was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I think this was the original bathroom, okay? So yeah, I'm not really sure exactly what was going on, because the way they've run this tile right to the back side of this trim makes me think that they maybe added the tile in the 50s, and this is the original bathroom but not the original tile. Certainly the color, 40, it's probably in the 20s or 30s, you'd start to see some funky colors, some real bright colors, some reds even, some greens, yellows, you know, those kind of primary colors that were happening in the 20s and 30s. Because if you look at bathroom plumbing fixtures, everything was white for a long time. And then in the 20s and 30s, you start to see some real bright colors. Going into the 50s and 60s, you start to see some pastels and some different kind of colors. So if someone put a gun to my head, I would say that this color is probably more of a 50s, 60s color. So because the way they've dropped it into the back side of this trim makes me think, yeah, something was going on, right? And they have that same built up little curb under the toilet in that front bedroom that they have here. So probably this was the original bathroom, and it got, you know, modernized in 59 when they did all this other work, but still original location, but they've definitely changed it up. What's interesting to me is this, because we've got some different woods going on here. The wood that was in that front room was that Luan mahogany, that cheap mahogany stuff. This doesn't look like that, and so it has a different sheen. It's a random width plank. And I know in this other room there's a random width pine, and then now these are this Colonial Revival maple. And so we've got a bunch of different things going on. A galley kitchen, again, this is probably the original kitchen location, I should say, because kitchens were kind of growing. Does it go back to the 59? Possibly. This kind of hardware has been, you know, was a staple in the 40s. Whether it stuck around into 59 or whether I've seen that you can still get that hardware today. So it doesn't, as a time stamp and as a clue, I don't necessarily look at that and go, yeah, that's definitely from the 40s. bunch of sliding door options. But see this plank pine and see this hardware? This hardware is different from that hardware. It's that same kind of hammered iron Colonial Revival stuff, but it looks like an earlier vintage. And so I'm not sure exactly what's going on with these cabinets. It wouldn't surprise me if these were the original kitchen cabinets that they brought out of here. We're on the outside of the house, okay? This is the original outside of the house, and there is a stair that goes up under here, and this was an exterior door, okay? Because I've looked underneath there and I've seen the stairs, and then I see these hinges in here, and I know this must have been a back door. So this all got closed in, and we're looking at and kind of being a part of whether this is the back porch or whether this is kind of an addition. But there was windows all the way around here. They filled in some of these with bookcases, but probably a 59 addition that we're looking at to kind of tying this thing together. As we go back to the back area, you start to see some materials and details that are definitely later. Look at this, okay? Anytime you see that sliding door, that kind of closet arrangement, anytime you see these flat panels without any kind of, style and rail, you're looking at kind of a modern addition. And as we come back here and just look at the different stuff in here, got a pretty cool little tile that's been used on the ceilings, kind of interesting. Got a red tile in here, okay? So another kind of weird bathroom treatment. Let's see what this tank says. This one's a newer tank because that other one was Crane. This one is not labeled, and so I'm just thinking that this is just a later, little bit more generic toilet. So, as the time stamping things go on here, we're back in that addition with that roof that goes out here. This was probably all done in '59. Here we are, guys, where we've got a really quaint, cute 1940s house that has this modern addition on it. So now that I've walked it, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, do we buy it? The fix up and the other things could be a lot of work. There's a lot of charm in here. There's natural charm in here. So I'm kind of puzzled. I'm kind of stroking my chin here, trying to figure out whether this is something we buy or not. And if we bought it, how do we fix it up? This is what I think about this house. Now I've walked it, kind of looked at it. Got a 40s house with a 60s addition. I like it, okay? I like it because the additions are old enough that they have charm, okay? And I don't look at this and think I've got to take everything back to 40 to be architecturally pure or anything else. It rambles and there's good space. If this is the first house or second house for somebody, I'm loving it. I mean, I can just see the kids running around and zipping through different areas. The bathrooms are semi-updated, and so you don't have to make a ton of big expenses. This would be the kind of house where if I moved in, I knew I could make additions over time and make changes over time. I got to redo the kitchen, but I don't need to redo it now. And so I look at it and I go, yeah, no, we could live here and then pick projects to kind of slowly start implementing. Maybe we paint the back area. Maybe we slowly work on the kitchen. Maybe we, maybe we open that wall up so it goes into the living room. There's enough cool things in this house and enough space that I actually think this could work really well. So don't let those additions that are funky, right, blow the bank, make you go, well, we've got to take everything back to the 40s. You really don't. I mean, if you look at a house, an historic house from 1820, and if it had an addition in 1840, you're not going to go, oh, I got to take that back to 1820, right? Because it's charming enough and it tells a story enough that it works. And so I think this house does the same. So 60s edition on a 40s house, I'm not blowing it out. In fact, I might even try to play with that, have a funky den, right? Have a 60s den, a Brady Bunch den or something, right? That makes this house fun, makes this house livable. You're young, this house works. Okay guys, Old House Handbook. I'm hoping this helps you guys as you think about houses, as you think about trying to fix things up. This is what it's for. It's for me walking around, letting you know what I see, letting you know what my eye catches, and whether something is a winner or a loser, and whether it's something that you should put money into and invest in and otherwise purchase. So let me know if there's something that you'd like me to look at. Let me know if you have questions. But Old House Handbook, I hope it helps. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.